I know a lot of the things that people are hearing about real estate because I have conversations about it every single day. What's the market doing? I know you might be hearing demand has dropped, sales are down, the market's crashing. All that stuff is maybe on a national level that could have some degree of truth to it. Most of it is with the amount of sales that are taking place. There are going to be much fewer sales in 2023. That does not correlate to a price drop. Real estate is always local. And before you get too upset with some of the things I'm going to tell you in this video, because some of these things are going to apply to buyers, most of them, but there's going to be a few that apply to sellers as well. Just know that I'm going to be looking to buy a house in this market. I'm going to be looking in March or April when it gets into the really heat of the spring market, but just know I am going to be following my own advice. I'm going to be looking to buy a house, yes, even in this market. But let's talk about some reasons why that the market is better this year for buyers than it was last year. Some are going to be obvious, some not so obvious. I'm Jeff Valentino. If you need help buying or selling real estate, my contact information is below. But just to start right off with that, first thing we're going to talk about that's better this year, where buyers have some control, is the insane due diligence fees. This is a non-refundable deposit. That's basically your commitment money. This is your sign to the seller that, yes, I'm going to go through with this deal. I mean, those things were insane at that time. I've seen some where and we're not talking about $1 million homes here. We're talking about $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 homes where you due diligence fees of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, even $70,000 and $80,000 non-refundable deposits that was going on last year. It was literally crazy. Talk about stress. Imagine yourself being a buyer. Yeah, sure, rates were low, but you're having to write a giant non-refundable check just to get in a house because there are 5 or 6 other people writing strong offers on that house as well. So the first thing is those due diligence fees have come way, way down. We're still seeing where they can get aggressive because we have some multiple offers, but nothing like it was last year and the year before. That is a huge, huge benefit for buyers. The next thing why I think the market is better this year than it was previously is mortgage rates have leveled a little bit. Now, I know they're higher. I know they're much higher. But remember everything that was going on with when those rates were in the 3s, right? It was causing all of this other chaos. And that $30,000 non-refundable due diligence fee, you can't get out of that. You can't refinance that. That $50,000 you had to offer over asking price, you can't get out of that. You can't refinance that. A 6% mortgage rate, 6.5% mortgage rate, if they come down in the next year or two as they're projected to, you can refinance out of that higher rate into a lower one. So mortgage rates leveling, even though they're higher than we want, and they're, these rates are probably, in this 5 and 6 range, are probably going to be here to stay. But just know they have leveled off. We've seen activity increase just in the last couple weeks because of that alone. Again, a sign to a more normalizing market, and why the real estate market in Winston-Salem is better this year than it was last year is now we can negotiate repairs. It was before that sellers would just laugh if you wanted to get a repair or a closing credit or a concession or something like that because, they're like, we got your big due diligence fee. We had 5 other offers on there. We don't have to go through with this. We could just work something out with the next buyer that's waiting in the wings, because that's kind of how it was. Now, it's not super doom and gloom. We're still able to negotiate some of those things, but right now, sellers are really starting to understand, look, we need this buyer to consummate this deal because we don't want to have to go back on the market, because days on market are a little bit longer than they were last year. As a matter of fact, they're about 13 or 14 days, where last year at this time they were about 1 to 2 days. So a seller knows now, or they should know, that look, we're going to have to play ball with these buyers as long as they're not making any crazy requests. We want to get this deal done so both parties are happy. We'll make these repairs to the house, or else we have to disclose it to the next party. So let's just get it taken care of and let's get this deal moving. Only a couple times last year did I advise clients that, hey, maybe this is one to consider waiving any repairs on. We did that, once or twice out of 30 some odd deals, but the vast majority of the time, I heard a lot of that going on. A lot of people waiving inspections and things like that. I never suggested we waive inspections. But anyway, you're just in a much better place this year where you can negotiate some of those repairs and you can actually get things done, get some closing credits, or get something fixed. It's great, great news for buyers. The next thing I want to talk about here is buyers are getting a little bit savvy, which I think is awesome. I'm really happy to see this. Here's what they're doing now. They're starting to capitalize on some seller mistakes. I made a video, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 months ago about some big mistakes sellers were making. One of those was really of how they were pricing the home and not having it show ready. That is something that buyers are really starting to see and capitalize on right now, because I'll explain to you real quick what happens there. So let's just say a buyer sees their house and their neighbor sold last summer for, 400 and they ended up selling it for 440 with no inspection. Not the same market it was last year. So they want a price at 440 and it sits on the market. And they didn't really paint or fix up, or they don't really, if it's junky when someone comes in for a showing, they don't really care because they think it's still how it was last year. Well, buyers are seeing this and they're seeing two things happen. They're seeing one, days on market add up. And when buyers and I see a house with more than, 2 to 3 weeks on market, I say, okay, is there a potential to save some money? What's going on? Let's look a little bit closer. That is just inviting lower offers, and really lower offers than we would have started at originally at the first place. I just helped a client close on one last month. And if you watch the Hidden Gems video, you know that I talked about that might have been the deal of the century. It was that classic mistake. They started out pricing it way, way too high. We ended up getting for much lower than probably we should have. I mean, it was a really nice house. So buyers are starting to capitalize on some of these mistakes. If the pictures aren't good and the house isn't show ready, we're just not seeing the showings. We're seeing, some seasonality, but just buyers are knowing they have to click and move and click and move. If the house doesn't look great in the pictures, they're not going to waste their time and come out and see it. If they're not going to see it, days on market add up. Might be a great house, but if people aren't seeing it, they're not going to buy it. So buyers are really starting to take advantage of these seller mistakes. Next thing that is really good that's making the real estate market better this year than it was last year in Winston-Salem is we can now use non-conventional financing. Last year, if you had an FHA loan or a VA loan or 100% USDA loan, it was almost like you got laughed out of the scenario before you even had a chance to get your offer looked at, or you had to do some other insane things to get your offer accepted if you were using an FHA, VA, or other non-conventional financing. You had to make, massive non-refundable deposits. You had to close whenever they want, let them lease the house back for 2 months. I mean, you had to do all kinds of crazy stuff if you wanted to try to get one of those offers accepted. Well, now, with the market more normalizing, we can get offers with non-conventional financing accepted all day, and very similar or about the exact same as what we would do with just a conventional offer. It's great. So if you're an FHA buyer or a VA buyer or USDA or any non-conventional financing, it's time to come back into the market, and that's what we're seeing. That's one of the things we're starting to see, the activity from these non-conventional buyers pick up, and I'm happy to see them start to be able to get some homes. This one is kind of for buyers and sellers. The market in the Triad in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point is not moving at the breakneck speed that it was, but the prices are not coming down. They've held steady. I've showed on the market update for 5 months now where they've stayed right at 100% of list to sales price ratio. As a matter of fact, there was a recent article on Realtor.com. They predicted home prices in the Triad in Winston-Salem and Greensboro to go up between 5 and 6 or a little over 6% in 2023. So that $300,000 house that you're looking at now should be worth, 5 or 6% more by the end of the year than it is right now. Again, a good thing for buyers and sellers as the market normalizes. And now a couple things why the market is still good for sellers, just to kind of balance some of these things out. The first thing I want to talk about is overall inventory is still low. In, technical speaking terms, we're still in a seller's market. So while inventory is much higher than it was last year, it's still relatively low. So sellers, if you have a nice house that's presented right, that's marketed correctly, and it's priced correctly, and it's in showing condition, you should still get showings and offers on your home. Speaking of that, the next good thing that's good for sellers is we still see multiple offer situations about 40% of the time. Now this is very, condition and location dependent. As I've said before, like all real estate, it's local and hyper local, but we're still seeing about 40% of the time a house comes on the market because of all the other things that we just talked about. There's more activity, there's low inventory, other buyers are in the market that weren't there before, but we're still seeing those multiple offer situations. So seller, if you have a nice house that you've taken care of, or if you need to make it nice, or if you want to talk about how to do that or the best way to market it, let me know. I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But we're still seeing plenty of multiple offer situations. Yes, even in this market that is slower than it was last year at this time. If you need help buying or selling real estate anywhere in Winston-Salem or Greensboro or the Triad, I'm happy to help. You can email me directly at jeff@govalentino.com. Thanks.